When we look at those foods that are 2/3 of the American diet, these foods are consistently associated in multiple studies with more depression, heart disease, total death rate, cancers, you name it. So there's a simple test we use called the Pioneer Woman test. So if a Pioneer Woman would recognize it, it's probably okay.
Hi, I'm Erika Barber, wife, mom, physician, internal medicine, professor of pathophysiology here at George Fox in the PA program. And I am here with Dr. Miles Hassell, fellow internal medicine physician, the one and only. So excited to have you here. He is author of Good Food, Great Medicine cookbook.
Wow, that's like the second edition.
Yes, this is an heirloom in the Barber family. This is my favorite cookbook, and it's actually a scrapbook. I can show you later why.
Wow.
Yeah. Podcast host of Walk, Don't Run to the Doctor. And what I'm really excited about is the present and future of passing on what you've learned over the last several decades of lifestyle medicine and making it more widely available through greatmed.org.
Thank you.
Yes. So excited.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nick and I met in medical school. We got married. We came out to Providence, St. Vincent. They let a married couple match together, which was very risky on their part. And we got to learn internal medicine. And we're still married. That was the risky part. Right. We don't have good stats as physicians always. And while we were there, you were one of our teachers in internal medicine. And when I think back of the hundreds of teachers that I've had in medicine, every one of them have been key to learning the craft of medicine, learning what medications do we have, what are the side effects, when should we really be worried about something. But very few have actually changed who I am. And you're in that short list of not just what I know as a doctor, but how do I live my life? What have I taken from medicine and how has it changed me?
Wow.
Yes. I don't think I've ever told you that.
Wow.
And it started with, you gifted this to me, this cookbook. And though I have learned a lot from you, Dr. Hassell, I think I've actually learned more from your mom. And I never met her, but she's got so many anecdotes sprinkled through this cookbook that I feel like I've met her. Like, for instance.
She was ahead of her time.
She was ahead of her time. She's an Australian mother.
No, she was actually sort of Canadian, I guess. Yeah, from Penticton, BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know how to roast a chicken. I'm sure my mom would have taught me these things, but I don't think I was in maybe a teachable mode when I was at home. And so it wasn't until I was newly married in residency, and it was your mom through this recipe who taught me how to roast a chicken, how to make brown rice, how to cook. Mm-hmm. And little anecdotes sprinkled through here, like, mother says nothing browns chicken skin more nicely than butter, and paprika helps too.
Everything's better with butter.
Yes, and the paprika. I underlined that, and it has been repeated multiple times in the Barber household.
Love it.
Okay, so let's go back to medicine. When I would rotate in your clinic and watch how you cared for patients, you brought them the standard of care for what they needed for medication, next steps in if they needed a specialist or whatnot. But I don't remember a single time where a patient left your office and didn't, in addition to those next steps, get some sort of paper information or discussion about what they could do for their health and how powerful their approach was in combination with those medicines. And how did you get there? How did you discover that it's the patient's role in their health that was just as important, if not more, than what we could offer with our script pad.
Well, I think it actually started with my mother, actually, because we grew up in an anti-medicine household.
Okay.
So the doctor was kind of the enemy growing up.
Okay. Yep.
And so we had all these medical books at home, and we were expected to take care of ourselves. And she was an early adopter of, she was roasting her own coffee beans. We were eating brown rice and bringing whole wheat bread to school with peanut butter and honey sandwiches, which made other kids laugh at us.
Did you appreciate this at the time?
I
The
did
good
not.
food you had? No.
I did not. Especially when she tried to make us eat liver. That was the only, that didn't, she didn't push those things too hard. But so, and I know for any listeners who may have heard of Adele Davis, who was a big writer in the 50s and 60s, and I would argue that if you take some of those old nutrition writers, whether it's Adele Davis in the 50s and 60s or, say, some Fletcher in the late 1800s, these untrained, smart people had more had more impact on medicine than the smart doctors of the time.
Huh.
And so, anyway, so I got brought up with that idea that your bodies are these created things that God's given you. Take care of it.
Uh-huh.
If you take care of it, you maybe don't need a doctor. In fact, if you go see a doctor, he might give you a poison that you'd be better off without, because is medicine evidence-based? That was an early question that we had at home. And so that gave me an opportunity. And so when I started getting interested in natural medicine, I actually was involved with a natural medicine clinic for a couple of years out of high school, just doing odd jobs and working in a health food store at the clinic. And so I sort of started to see naturopathy and realize that unfortunately they had largely sort of capitulated, in my opinion, to an allopathic model of giving people the pills. The labels on the pills were different, but it was still, they weren't really teaching people how to take care of themselves. And I got interested in this whole idea of how do you get, what really works for people. Let's say you have high blood pressure. How well do high blood pressure drugs work compared with losing some weight, getting some exercise, cutting back on your sugars, maybe eating some more celery and other nitrate donors? And this research, so I was in medical school in the 80s, and people were laughing at me then. If you saw the comments in my yearbook, it was all friendly and loving, but I was clearly an outlier. And so the idea even back then was there was a lot of literature already showing up that said taking care of yourself worked really, really well.
So let me interrupt real quick. So it's not a matter of allopathic Western medicine versus naturopathic medicine. In both camps, let's say, there's this temptation to give a lab-formulated version to restore health. So in the Western medicine, a medication, a pharmaceutical, and in naturopathic, supplements or whatnot. But in both cases, though they may or may not help in either of those cases, it's not the whole story. There's a much bigger, deeper story in restoring health.
And it's a missed opportunity, as I see it. So I would argue that by doing so, you're taking the control of their health out of the patient's hands. They think, I take this pill for my high blood pressure or this statin for my cholesterol, which might help a little bit. I'm not saying it doesn't help at all, but nowhere near the benefit that we would achieve if we taught the patients to exercise every day, eat better, cook their own food at home, which is a critical factor, and those kinds of steps. But behind that is this conceptual framework that says the patient's going to do a better job of taking care of themselves than the doctor can do for them. And Sir William Osler, 120 years ago, said, the curious difference between humans and animals is the desire to take pills. He said it better than that. He was a more elegant speaker, but that's roughly what he said. And so patients will tend to gravitate, when given an easy option, we're all lazy, myself included, will tend to gravitate towards doing what's easy. And what's easier than spending some money and getting some pills rather than learning how to cook carrots or roast a chicken?
Well, but medicine's getting more and more expensive. I think pills are getting harder and harder to afford. And I feel like there's kind of a turning tide in medicine and in culture in general toward health of more people wanting to know what they can do. My husband, Nick, is a cancer doctor, and he says that pretty regularly when patients get a new diagnosis of cancer, he'll lay out the plan of, all right, here's what's the recommendation for chemo or radiation or whatnot. And he's always encouraged when they ask the question, okay, and what can I do? So
Can I jump in there?
yes, please.
Just to give you, this is a great segue to, for example, a recent study on advanced stage colon cancer patients. And they were randomized to either getting exercise in addition to their chemo, they had already had surgery, chemotherapy regimen, or no exercise, or no prescribed exercise, just a general recommendation, but not prescribed exercise. Those that were prescribed exercise, and it wasn't dramatically, and these were not marathon runners, but just get some exercise every week, had a 37% lower death rate at 8 years, lower recurrence rates, less other cancers. Just about any metric you can imagine was dramatically improved. And this is quite plausible because we have 30 years of data showing that exercise reduces your risk of cancer, and if you get cancer, it improves your outcomes. The paper got almost no attention. It's a 37% reduction in death rate, which easily compares to what we do with chemotherapy and radiation.
Wasn't this in a major journal?
It
the
was
New
in a
England
major
Journal?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
So, but where were the headlines?
Yeah.
Where were the doctors writing prescriptions for exercise for their patients?
Yep.
The only thing I saw was a piece in Substack saying, this is not plausible. Ignore it. I'm not making this up.
Wow.
I haven't gotten around to writing a reply
No,
yet.
I think this is huge. The challenge study just came out, New England Journal of Medicine in June, last month.
June 1st, yeah.
I don't know, at the time of this recording, last month.
Yeah.
And it's huge because, one, I think it reassures patients with cancer. It's okay to move. It's okay to get your blood pumping. Don't be afraid that's going to make the cancer worse. This is a randomized trial where we have good data that's showing not only is it not going to make it worse, but decreased recurrence of the cancer 8 years down the road.
And reduction total death rate by 37%.
Amazing.
We don't see that with our chemotherapy in most cases.
And the exercise prescription was only 3 years. It wasn't the full 8 years,
Good
right?
point. But you get somebody on a habit in 3 years?
Yes.
Yes.
It was all about, what I read from and interpret from that data is that help in forming a habit changed that person, and they kept going. That's what I think is...
And their mood is better. Their energy is better.
Yes.
They got fewer additional cancers to a significant degree. In other words, once you have a cancer, you're more likely to get another cancer. The patients who exercise had less chance, not only of their original cancer returning, they also were less likely to get another cancer.
Okay. I've been thinking about this more too, of when and if I get a cancer one day, not only do I want that standard of care of chemo and radiation and whatever we've got that has good data behind it, I feel confident in continuing to move my body in how I can, and to push through that fatigue a little bit as much as I can, because it'll actually help with the fatigue. But then the other thing is, when people offer how they can help, or that they're thinking about me and want to help, I think what my response will be is, can you please make me a home-cooked meal?
Right.
Or will you please come over and cook with me?
Yeah. Or walk with me.
Or walk with me.
Yeah. Or play ping pong.
Maybe not ping pong, because I'm so competitive that I get my blood pressure up. But the home-cooked meal, I want to talk about that. I think when I talked earlier about your influence on what do I apply in my personal life, it's a love of food. Not the taste of food. I've always loved the taste of food, but seeing food as a gift, like seeing the avocado and saying, this thing is going to raise my HDL. This good fat is so good for me. And getting excited about the rainbow of foods out there, the richness that foods don't just give us energy, calories, that's way under appreciating food. But there's vitamins and antioxidants, and it just made me excited for having real food.
And there's a mystery there too, because we don't know all the nutrients. We can't make an artificial diet.
No.
And then you think of the family factors. Think of the richness of family life when you cook together and eat meals together.
Yes. So Nick and I gratefully received your gift of a cookbook. We listened whenever you would offer teaching to the residents. You did a bunch of grand rounds for us, and it made sense to me. You presented data of the people who live longest and are the healthiest are those who live around the Mediterranean Sea. And they're also the people who don't cut out major food groups. They're okay eating this omnivorous diet, but they're going to fill up primarily on foods that are rich in nutrient. And so we started, we believed you. We believed the studies that you showed. We got the cookbook. I wrote lots of notes. I started making the recipes. And what Nick and I found is we had always been type A people who, well, I'm type A.
Who would have guessed?
He's less. I am. But, physician type personalities. We've always been hard exercise folks. But taking the time to pick real food and cook it, I don't know, that seemed old-fashioned to me. But even in the busyness of residency, I bought on into that idea. And so I cooked a little bit when I could. And Nick and I felt so much better. We had more energy.
And your partner was on board.
Yes. Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. Now, there's lots of notes in here. Like, for instance, the halibut calpinata, is that what you say? Mm-hmm. Where I said something along the lines of, even though Nick doesn't like eggplants, capers, there was something else in there. He loved this, and it's a repeat. So I'd say, even if your partner's not totally on board, you can kind of sneak a little bit and be surprised, because our palate changes when we prepare food well with real food and fresh ingredients. And
avoid too many assumptions. There's a book that had an influence on me that, oddly enough, by Jane Kindler, called Confessions of a Sneaky Organic Cook. And so she described how she introduced whole foods to her family that weren't used to it, just bit by bit. They didn't like onions. She only put in 1/10 as many onions as she did, and then 1/20. They didn't like brown rice. She made 80% white rice and 20% brown rice, and then 50-50, and so on. Because we can sneak up on, so your husband doesn't like capers?
Yes.
Just put in one caper. He won't notice it. They don't like mushrooms. They hardly have any flavor at all. Chop them really fine. Put in plenty of red wine and butter.
Yeah, and garlic.
Yeah, and garlic. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I love, one of the sections in here, you talk about one of your patients who wanted to make changes, was going through the pantry, trying to figure out what to throw out. And I thought it was really helpful. You said she had 3 categories. She had toxic treats, and food. So in the toxic treats category, what would you put in that?
I would put in most ultra-processed. So if I could just digress for just a second. 2/3 of the food in America, eaten in America, primarily qualifies under this thing called a NOVA classification as ultra-processed. That's most baked goods, most frozen foods, most foods made outside the home that your grandmother, great-grandmother wouldn't recognize. So your great-grandmother would recognize canned beans. She would recognize ketchup. She would recognize, and so on. So I'm not talking about these traditional minimally processed foods, canned meats like tuna, for example. Salted meats, like the Parma ham that your Italian relatives might have had 500 years ago. We're not talking about those traditional foods. We're talking about the TV dinners, the chips, the protein powders, the baked goods, the breads, pastries, and so on.
And wait a minute, protein powder.
I'm afraid so.
I thought that was a health food.
Ultra processed, nope. Ultra processed chemical construct. And if anybody thinks that their chemical with their protein powder is natural, with the possible exception of some whey powders, these are chemical processed. They've ripped this food apart chemically and then put it back together again. It's an industrial chemical. So when we look at those foods, then that are 2/3 of the American diet, roughly, these foods are consistently associated in multiple studies with more depression, heart disease, total death rate, cancers, you name it. Pretty much any significant health outcome is worsened with the more of these foods are eaten on a dose-response curve. So the more you eat, the more the greater the risk. So to go back to your question, anything that's toxic treat would be, there's a simple test we use called the Pioneer Woman test. Mm-hmm. So if a Pioneer Woman would recognize it, it's probably okay. So she may not have ever seen an avocado, but she would say this is a fruit of some kind. Mm-hmm. She may not have seen your particular garbanzo beans, but she would say those are canned beans. I know what those are. So, but would she recognize most of your corn chips, potato chips, most of your chocolates, and so on? So those would be toxic treats, things that you should have very rarely. Then you have the regular treats.
Yeah.
Like, would she recognize homemade chocolate chip cookies? You bet she would.
Yeah.
She may not recognize the chocolate chips, but she would recognize the rest of the cookie. So anything made at home that's maybe got a little bit more sugar and white flour than you probably would consider a daily thing, those would be the good treats category.
Yeah, and this is how our family, the toxic treats are fake foods.
That's a great term.
Non-dairy, I got it from you. You're cooking. Non-dairy creamer.
Butter substitutes.
Margarine. Just go for the real butter. That's a real food, but
don't forget that the leaders of nutrition in the United States were recommending margarine not that long ago, and they never apologized. So this is a food that we knew was toxic from the 70s, and yet it was pushed in America through to the early 2000s. Sorry, I digress.
No, so I would say anything that's, when it's synthetically made and it's fake, it is not a real food. Just get it out. Go ahead and throw it out. Don't feel guilty about it. Mm-hmm. Treats, I think of these are like empty calories, like white bread. Delicious. Sometimes I just want some white bread. So it's a good, with butter on it.
Don't get a pound of butter, a loaf of white bread, and a toaster, and life is good.
Yeah. So the treats category are like, they're empty calories, but life's short. Go ahead and have a treat and celebration every once in a while, but don't make it a regular part of your diet because it's not giving you anything.
And if possible, make it yourself. So we had a rainy day last week. Was it rain last weekend? Anyway, it was one of those gray, miserable Northwest days. And we didn't have anything on the schedule. And I looked at my son and I said, we've never made cinnamon rolls. So we made
We've never made cinnamon rolls.
So we made half whole wheat cinnamon rolls with lots of butter. And they were just fabulous.
Yeah.
We ate them with no guilt at all.
Yep.
Enjoyed them. There's
an Italian restaurant here in town. Authentic fresh noodles.
Oh, yeah. Egg noodles.
And in my mind, I'm like, I don't care if it's whole grain or white because it's fresh and it's delicious.
Made by an Italian grandmother.
Yeah. In this case, an Italian grandfather, but yes.
Same idea.
Yeah. Delicious. Yes. All right. And then there's the category of food. And in our family, this is what really fuels you. Not just to move and do athletics and think well, but these are the vitamins and the nutrients that are getting into cells and are essential parts of making your cells work right. And they're helping clean up some of the bad stuff in also. So the more real food we're eating, the more our palate starts to crave and appreciate this. I'm going to give an example. My mom she's always heard about your cookbook because I talk about it a lot. My sister and brother, we share recipes from your cookbook back and forth. But she's really loved your podcast. That's what's been a great avenue for her because she can listen to you while she's walking. And she said, Miles taught me to eat an apple when I'm hungry. I never used to like apples. Now I do. And anytime I'm hungry, I go get an apple, and then I start to think about what we're going to do for dinner or whatnot. And she said, and now I like them. Her palate had changed. And I think there's also like this psychological appreciation. She knows what she's putting in her body. It's fun to think about what it's doing for us.
And she's not eating something else.
Yes.
So there's this replacement. Yeah.
Yep.
There's this concept of just replacement, replacing something that's dubious with something that's healthy.
Yes.
And you're going to come out ahead every time.
Yes.
And your waistline is going to get smaller.
Which we're not caring about for appearance. I want to make the caveat here because I think for women especially, well, I shouldn't make that generalization, but I think a lot of times our relationship with food can be negative because we're worried about how it affects our appearance. And so it's almost like not liking our body. And whereas I think a tiny shift in thinking of food as fueling our body and is liking our body, is loving it, in fact, and seeing great purpose from it, of the love we can show others with it. So
and makes us life in 5 years and 10 years better.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. Can we mention the Leonhardt study?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one of those classic diets, and there's many like it. And I should mention I think the listener should remember that all lifestyle medicine literature is poor quality. So unless just because of the variable nature of humans. And so whenever you're looking at anybody's study, if there isn't multiple lines of evidence supporting that same study, so then you should ignore it, right?
Okay.
And so the food literature that you and I have been talking about is consistent. We have 40, 50 years of it, and it's a very consistent message. And so I just mentioned that because I fear that people are going to hear one soundbite and think that it's isolated.
Yeah.
But in the Leonhardt study, they took 600 people who had just had a heart attack, and half of them were randomized to a Mediterranean-style diet, which they were told to cook at home. This was done in Southern Europe. And so they had numerous factors in there that encouraged people to cook those foods themselves. The other half were told to follow basically an American Heart Association recommendation. So two decent diets compared to each other. It wasn't garbage versus a good diet. In the Mediterranean diet group, and these were all high-risk patients who had just had a heart attack, and there was no change in medications, there's no change in smoking rates, there's no change in exercise, there's no change in weight.
Okay.
There's no change in cholesterol. And yet the group that were on the Mediterranean-style diets at 4 years had 70% less heart disease risk, so 70% fewer events like heart attacks and strokes, about half the death rate, and 60% fewer cancers.
Wow.
And once again, these are just enormous numbers compared to what we can do with conventional medicine. And as you pointed out earlier, we're not saying don't use conventional medicine.
Yep.
We're saying don't underrate the power of what you can do for yourself. And so that was purely a food study, just a food study, and yet these dramatic results.
Mm-hmm.
And people are fretting over whether, what their dose of statin should be. And that's okay, but fret over whether you're eating good food.
Yeah.
Fret over whether you're exercising is just as much.
Yeah, I agree. And though this cookbook is 2 decades old, almost.
Oh, but not the 4th edition. You don't have the 4th edition.
But your 4th edition is not going to be that much different because the data has not changed. This is not a fad, the Mediterranean diet. This has been consistent over many, many decades. And it's not about saying no to certain foods. It's about filling up and fueling on good foods. And it's an easy lifestyle. You feel good. It's not difficult to do. It's moderation. And now there's way more diseases that we know will have better outcomes if we're eating these Mediterranean diet foods, maybe say what is your one-liner about what the Mediterranean diet is? How would you summarize what those foods are?
It would be fruits, vegetables, beans, and grains, to which you add some animal proteins like dairy and meat and fish. A little bit of wine, using olive oil as your main kitchen fat. How's that?
Yes.
And food mostly cooked at home.
I like it. And I'll also say for folks where wine is not an option, that's a little perk with it, but not a main part of it.
No, but in the research, it does show up in most studies, but you can be perfectly healthy without the wine
Yes,
part.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I have started carrying around a little glass container of olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
I drizzle it on many meals. Okay.
Well, you introduced me to the Durant orange olive oil.
Yes.
That was we use Durant olive oil all the time. It's a local olive oil, of course. It's
Yes.
fabulous.
Yes.
The orange olive oil was quite an experience for me because I'd never had it before.
Okay, what's your favorite thing to drizzle it on?
Probably your idea of putting it on ice cream.
Yes,
Yeah.
vanilla ice cream.
Yeah,
Do we put that in the treat category? The ice cream's in the treat, the olive oil's in the real food.
Actually, because it's easy to make ice cream yourself,
Yeah.
and it's actually pretty healthy food. You can cut the sugar in most recipes by half. So I'm almost arguing that ice cream, homemade ice cream is, with modest amounts of sugar in it, is a pretty good food.
I think you just earned some points in my kids' line.
I think, and that's kind of a fun way to think about some of this stuff too, is if you make it yourself. Like if you can teach your kids, let's say you've got kids that are, say, 7 or 8 or more, they can do an awful lot around the kitchen. They can bake bread. They can make mayonnaise. I mean, Tor was making mayonnaise when he was 6, I think. It takes about 90 seconds, a minute, somewhere in that region, if you follow our instructions. And that's kind of fun, and you don't have to get rid of all these treats. You can make your own ice cream, you can make your own coconut macaroons, you can make your own half whole wheat snickerdoodles, and so on.
Yes. Yeah, I have a little note in your mayonnaise recipe in here. Wow, it really worked. I just made mayonnaise.
Did it work the first time or did it work the second time?
No, first time.
Nice work.
Yes.
A lot of people have to do it twice. So like baking bread.
Yeah.
You sort of maybe the first time doesn't come out so
Yeah. That's good. Okay, we're at time. I want to, for people who want to learn more, this has piqued their interest. They want to be able to feel more empowered about their own health, or maybe it's a loved one and they want to give a gift. I have to say, my recommendation for a wedding gift or a graduate gift or a loved one, I have given out so many copies of this Good Food, Great Medicine. And if you go to Durant Olive Oil, the olive mill, here in Dundee, Oregon, they sell your cookbook there.
Oh,
excellent. Get a cookbook, get a bottle of the best olive oil on the planet that I've tasted. Mm-hmm. And what a great gift.
Yep.
What a empowering, and then it's fun to exchange recipes together.
Yeah, and having a few, that our cookbook, of course, so we like to hear that mentioned, but have a few cookbooks around.
Yeah.
Leaf through them. Look, get excited about cooking. Get your family excited about cooking. Get your kids used to cooking.
Yeah.
Get them get away from the screen. And that may mean investing in a couple of good knives and a couple of nice cutting boards too. Having some basic tools in the kitchen doesn't take very much. Boy, that makes life better.
Yes. Okay, last question for you. If folks want to learn more about their particular disease and what they can do for their health, or if there's other folks in the healthcare field, we got a lot of healthcare students here at George Fox. How can they learn more about the particulars of what you're taking of data from good, solid research, as good as we can get it in the lifestyle medicine world, and then how to apply it for health?
I think, first of all, determine that you're going to take charge of your own health. And that's kind of an interesting step for people. It's not your doctor's job to have you healthy. Your doctor is a consultant. And then every time you're faced with a choice, say, is there a lifestyle choice that I already know about that I could be making? Because we find that it's not lack of knowledge in most of our patients' cases. They know they should get some exercise every day. They know they should cook more food. They know they should eat less sugars and white flour products. It's deciding in their brain that they're going to do it. So that's the first step, I think, is taking charge.
Yeah.
Taking what your doctor has to offer if it's going to be helpful, and saying, every time you're given a prescription, how much will this help? Because I think a lot of doctors actually sort of give a prescription because they think that patients are expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing somebody for a cough, and you want the doctor to tell you that you know whether you have lung cancer or tuberculosis or just a simple virus or a bacterial thing that needs treatment. You want a doctor who's going to be honest enough to say, you know what, this cough might last for a week or two and it'll get better by itself in all probability. If it doesn't, then let me know. And so don't try to talk your doctor into giving you a prescription you don't need. Then say, what can I be doing for myself that I already know about? And then to get to what your really question is, in the fourth edition of our book, for example, we have area in the first part of the book that covers about 13 major disease processes: degenerative disease of the brain, joints, osteoporosis, heart disease, stroke, dementia, and Parkinson's disease, anxiety and depression. We give what is currently known about those areas. And then you can start learning, if you've got the patience to do so, any patient can start learning how to use Google Scholar. Grab a medical dictionary, go to Google Scholar or PubMed, and just start reading about your own disease process. And use keywords like lifestyle medicine, and let's say you have Parkinson's disease. Lifestyle medicine, Parkinson's, lifestyle medicine, multiple sclerosis, lifestyle medicine, and cancer. You can go to something like our new website, greatmed.org, where we're starting to build out. Right now, it's mainly populated by advice on diabetes and prediabetes. We're just adding our cancer module now, and then we'll add other modules. And so we're hoping to build that out. And then look for hints in any source that you're using that they're not using good science. And by good science, we usually mean there should be at least 3 supportive lines of evidence. So there's no recommendation we make that unless it has at least 3 supporting lines of independent evidence, if that makes sense. So 3 different studies, different methodologies, different countries, that kind of thing, and no significant opposing evidence. So see if they talk about opposing evidence. So for example, in our book, we will talk about why red meat is a good part of the diet in modest quantities. We also tell you why some people would disagree with us and weigh the difference. And that's so look for anybody, any source of advice, including ours. Don't trust them until they've passed a certain set of common sense rules. And so it can be a lot of work, but if you only have one disease process to worry about, it's not that much work. Secondly, don't forget to do what you already know to do. If you're not exercising, don't worry about if some weirdo supplement's going to be good for you or bad for you. Start with the stuff you know about. Get some exercise every day, play some games, get enough sleep, cook your own food.
Amen, brother. Cheers. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Keep doing the good work.
Thanks very much.